So this is part 2. Listen if you dare.
Gather hands, everyone, as Shrek and Fiona set intentions.
We have demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are called to this town to help a family, the Smurl family, who had been experiencing a lot of haunting activity for many, many months. And it had progressed to the point where it was clearly a poltergeist. It was clear that there was this dark demonic energy. It had taken up residence in this home, and this would take more than one night for the Warrens to banish. And this is a content warning for sexual assault. So with the new evidence, the Warrens decided to bring in more help, more people. They arrive and they do a walkthrough of the house and everything else that's happened. And they go upstairs, they go to Dawn's room, and Lorraine hears rapping and scratching on the window. And so Lorraine looks up into the window and she sees, staring back at her, a dark mass. It was the demon exposing itself to Lorraine. Hey.
Welcome to our swamp.
It's raining as it does in swamps.
We have a flat screen TV, as you do.
We get upgraded in swamps.
Yeah, swamp life is treating us well.
It is.
Our earwax candles are setting the mood. It's romantic.
Yeah, so romantic that the green is just dripping off of
melting
us, right?
off of us.
We're basically morphing into humans. Ugh.
Gross.
Yuck. This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
Two Girls, One Ghost. And we are your ogres. That is Corinne.
Hello.
And I'm Sabrina, or Shrek and Fiona.
You know, this was a costume we purchased for when I was pregnant, and I feel like the execution would have been a little bit better with a bit of a belly, but...
Right. I was picturing like you being pregnant and fully exposed pregnant belly.
You know, Shrek costume?
Yeah.
Sexy Shrek crop top
like,
pregnant?
Yeah, basically crop top. Yeah.
It's so hard what I already did with Thor.
We have some things to tell you.
There's a lot.
There is a lot
going on in the world and in the Two Girls, One Ghost universe.
And we'll start with Two Girls, One Ghost universe.
Great.
We accomplished it. We did it. Congratulations to us.
Woo!
We are haunted yet again this October season.
I was going to say unintentionally, but like, what are we doing if not asking for it by covering such darkness in
and what
the
do we
month of October?
Expect? We do it every year.
Well, and it's not just in October. It happens all the time.
Year round.
But shit did happen after last episode.
Yes. So this is your warning that listen to our warnings. And
Heed
for
the
us
warnings
to set intentions properly.
Right. Because before I feel like we also, when things were happening, we were both a little freaked out, but we were trying to play it cool. We're like, oh, how weird. Ha. And then a lot happened after.
Well, I was trying to play it cool, especially because we are recording in your house.
Right.
And you're very much like, we're not allowed to do anything like where we summon things. And I was like, yeah. Cool. Totally fine. I don't feel ringing in my ear and I don't feel lightheaded and I don't feel nauseous. Totally fine.
And then I feel like jinx you a little bit because I was like, I don't want to say that I hope it follows you home, but I hope it doesn't stay here.
Yeah.
And
it followed me home.
I got like small trickles of things, but nothing compared to what you got.
Right. We recorded last week's episode, part 1 of this 2-parter.
Smurl possession.
Yeah. And I went home and I felt really weird after recording. We did 2 back-to-back episodes about demonic possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to drive through Salem and stop and pick up my prescriptions. And I was so nauseous and had such a headache that I was like, I'm not going to do this right now. Like, I'll do it another time.
Yeah.
I need to go home.
Jeez. So it didn't even get better leaving the house.
No. And then I was like, I'm also hungry. I haven't eaten. It was like 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't eaten. So I went home and I made lunch. And I thought, okay, I'll get better. I went and laid down in bed, just like laying there. I turned on Below Deck, something like that. And I'm in bed for 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, I hear a loud scream and a ton of noise. And I was like, what the hell? And I, freeze in bed, kind of like looking around, silent. And then I hear the noise continuing. And it wasn't more screams. It was just like noise. And I was like, is the TV on downstairs? Yeah. And sure enough, I go downstairs. It is on full volume.
This is what happened in part 1 of the Smurl possession. This is some of the beginnings of the possession.
But I was like, okay, because our TVs use the same remote. And I was like, did I touch the remote by accident and accidentally send the signal to the downstairs TV and turn it on? I came up with every excuse, right? But I turned the TV off downstairs. I go back upstairs and the dresser drawer had opened by itself. And they're all...
So when you were out of the room, it opened?
Yeah, it opened.
For the like 60 seconds you were gone.
Right. And granted, our house has slanted floors, so
it's drawers
could presumably open like that. But it has never happened like that before. And the drawers are magnet closed. Like they stay shut unless you pull them. I was like, okay. And then Leia jumps up and snuggled up in the open drawer. So I was like, guess the ghosts are helping you out. I don't know.
Yeah. Leia's not freaked out. She's like, this is great.
Yeah. And then I took a 3-hour nap and did some calling upon my ancestors and my guardians to keep me safe. And I have yet to have anything happen since.
Okay. Because those two things are like literally things that happened to the Smurls.
Well, what didn't happen to the Smurls?
That's also true. I feel like nothing that extreme happened to me. There was just a few times where, God, I don't even know what I was thinking about or talking about, but there would be like some moments where I was thinking about something like darker and then I'd get the same thing that we got recording, just like ice cold all around my back. But that was it. That was the only thing that
feels almost protective where it's like, don't think about it.
Yeah.
I want to make you think about something else. Yeah.
Yeah. But yours was...
And also when we were recording it, remember there was one part you were talking about, something about whispering in the ear. And I had, right before you had talked about that, my left ear just felt like weird and ringing almost.
Yeah. Someone is whispering to you. So this is part 2. Listen if you dare.
And we'll set our intentions here and now. Gather hands, everyone, as Shrek and Fiona set intentions. This podcast is purely for us to talk about and learn about the paranormal, the otherworldly, the other side of things that we don't see with our human naked eye. And it is just a discussion. We do not allow anything negative or dark to be in our spaces or to follow us home, to touch us, to be in our lives. We are surrounded by love and light and positivity, and it shall remain as so.
Perfect.
This swamp is ghost-free.
There are no ghosts in Shrek, only donkeys.
And evil Lord Fuck
little men.
Well done.
Great. Yeah, no, that's a good reminder to the spirits that although we might be talking about you, we're not trying to summon you.
We're not trying to hang out.
No. Which feels a little unfair and one-sided.
Wine and dine me first, you know?
Yeah, maybe they're trying.
Bring me the wine.
Open the drawer, pick out an outfit, Sabrina. We'll have a little movie night, turn on the TV.
You know what's even funnier?
Whisper sweet nothings in your ear.
Do you want to know what drawer it was?
Lingerie.
Yeah. No, just
dirty
underwear.
little ghost.
All the lingerie that I have.
My collection. I order my underwear now on Amazon.
Are they comfortable?
Yeah, they're actually great.
Oh, will you send me the link?
Yeah, they're not like thongs. I'm a mother now, so it's full coverage.
You're going briefs?
I'm going full booty. I don't care if there's underwear lines. It is what it is, but they're really great and they're comfortable.
And that's what matters.
And they tuck in my little C-section shelf.
Love it.
Say that 3 times fast. That's
C-section shelf. C-section shelf.
Okay, but we need to talk about someone that did accidentally summon something.
Which is hilarious because Corinne, right before we're sitting down for recording, Corinne goes, I have something to talk about. And I literally look at her and I go, is it the Katie Santee thing? Because I texted myself the whole thing to talk about.
Oh my gosh. And then of course I'm like looking through all of the comments on all of Katie Santee's posts and I recognize Litha is in the comment section. I'm like, hell yeah, the Two Girls One Ghost universe. Like we are in there. So if anyone doesn't know, on TikTok, there is this like 30-part series that's been unfolding. We're recording this on October 7th. So who knows if there's going to be new leads by the time this comes out.
Because 2 days ago, a big thing happened.
Yes. So to begin, it starts with a woman named Katie Santee on TikTok. And she posts a video because she's like, hey, I think my house is haunted. There's weird stuff happening. My lip balm got moved from my desk. Things were cluttered and like moved around. It just feels like there's a presence maybe that like is trying to mess things up. And we just started to dig in our yard. So perhaps there's a spirit here who is haunting our house and just like wants its presence to be known.
Because her and her husband are putting in a fence. So they've been digging holes for the posts. And before all the paranormal stuff was happening, they found like a shag rug.
It was the same day. It was that earlier that day.
Right. And that night things happened. And they were like, that's weird.
It was rolled up and it was so far underground that they just had like the corner of it. And it was clearly the direction that it was going went underneath their fire pit and patio. So there was no intention for them to dig up this rug.
Mm-mm.
She was simply remarking that it was an odd occurrence.
What a strange thing to find.
And then TikTok was like, Katie, what the hell? There's a rolled up rug. There could be a dead body. You have to call the police.
Because also her computer screen had shattered that same night.
Yes, that's right.
And she was like, so middle of the night, her computer is in the office on her desk. No one's out there. No one's doing anything. She comes up there in the morning, sees her computer screen is shattered. Things are moved around. And she's like, what the hell? And so as a joke, kind of, she posted it on TikTok.
Yeah. No, and then TikTok was like, call the police. She essentially got bullied by TikTok into calling the police. She calls the police. Police are like, weird. Okay. Like, we'll look up any cold cases and see if there's any missing persons and see if like this is something worth coming out for. And then Katie follows up again and they're like, yeah, we're not interested. We're not coming. But then all of a sudden they call and they're like, actually, we're coming. And in the time between when the police first said that they weren't interested and then them saying that they're coming, there were hordes of people on TikTok and in the community being like, we'll bring over a bulldozer, we'll help you dig, because it was really difficult for just Katie and her husband. And also, to Katie's point, she was like, hey, if the police aren't trying to help here,
they don't think it's anything.
Yeah, like there's only so much damage I can do to my own property, like where she literally would have to destroy a good chunk of finished property, which in the grand scheme of things, if you're like, there's a dead body underneath it, like, of course you're going to destroy it.
Right.
But she was like, I just need a little bit more reason or like another person, like just a few more things need to happen before I'm tearing up my whole fire pit in my yard.
And the police came with dogs.
2 cadaver dogs.
And they didn't know where in the lawn they found the rug. They didn't know anything. But these 2 dogs go and sit right on top of where the rug is.
Yeah, they both mark exactly where the rug is. And Katie was like, oh my gosh, I hope someone just got like a bloody nose and it like was rolled up carpet or whatever and they just buried it that way.
Bleed all over your carpet and you naturally dig it 6 feet under the ground.
Well, but to people's point, they were like, cadaver dogs are not there to mark where there's blood.
Mm-mm.
They specifically are trained to smell decaying human bodies. So for both of them to mark in the exact same spot, separate dogs, they were not like brought out together, a buddy system and both sitting together.
Mm-mm.
Like they had separate searches and for both of them to mark was odd. So then immediately there's CSI, there's like, I don't even know, all of, there's like 3 different teams that come out. Everybody's digging.
The GBI goes, we were invited. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. GBI.
You want the GB?
You and I.
Ghost Bureau. I thought you were talking about Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I was like, they plant shit all the time.
Ghost Bureau.
Ghost Bureau of Investigation. Yes, we do wish we were there. Yeah. But basically, this whole series, you can hear a lot more details if you look at Katie Santry's TikTok series. But essentially what happened was, up until this point, on this day, October 7th, they come, they grab the rug, the professionals, the police, they uncover it, and there's nothing in the rug. So she's like, that's it. Oh, well, too bad. Yeah. Our fire pit's destroyed. No body, but like, thank God.
Yeah, at least
and then
know
she's
there's
like,
no body.
oh, well, the neighbor had died a while ago. Maybe it's the neighbor who's haunting this area. But I was deep in the comment section on TikTok. And people did say that there have been other cases where there's been like a rug and then the body is even further underground so that the rug can be kind of like a red herring. Like you first do that. Or the body was first in the rug, decaying in the rug, then taken out of the rug, rolled up, buried.
Again, yeah.
Body somewhere else. And so people are wondering if the body, again, Katie would have to destroy more of her property. But both of the dogs were very interested in the deck and they marked right at the side of the deck, which is also where the rug was. And so people are wondering if the body was buried maybe a few feet over underneath where the deck was built.
We don't know. Maybe there will be more updates when this comes out.
But it started with a haunting, which is like this person's spirit, whoever it is clearly trying to get Katie's attention and be like, hey, you just discovered the rug. You're so close to finding me. This is the first time in forever that anyone has come close to my body. Like, help me.
Or it's just a weird timing and a ghost was passing through and didn't like the computer and just broke it and then moved on.
Seems odd.
Also, Katie said like all she knows is that the previous owners are the only ones who ever owned the house. They're 90 years old and they moved into a home, like a nursing home.
Right. And her realtor's good friends with that couple's daughter. So they were asking the daughter. But people were like, oh my God, did these people have something to do with it? And now they're on their like close to the end of their life thinking they're about to get away with it. And it's all Golden State Killer style.
I know.
But let's not, maybe they had nothing to do with it.
And maybe it was just a ghost passing through who's ruffled up and riled up TikTok.
Yeah.
Which, you know what?
I don't know though. 2 cadaver dogs, both marking.
I know, that's the part that really convinces me that there's something.
There's a dead body somewhere on that land.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
Okay, part 2 of the Smurl possession.
Now that intentions have been set, we're ready.
Yes, we are. So, West Pittston, Pennsylvania. We have demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are called to this town to help a family, the Smurl family, who had been experiencing a lot of haunting activity for many, many months. And it had progressed to the point where it was clearly a poltergeist and the family was in danger. The very first night that the Warrens were there, it was clear that there was this dark demonic energy. It had taken up residence in this home, and this would take more than one night for the Warrens to vanish.
Didn't they do like a whole session and then they were like heading out the door and be like, we'll be back because this is just one of many.
The Smurls were like, phew, the Warrens came and saved the day. And the Warrens were like, we've been here for a few hours. This is going to take a hell of a lot more time. Don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
When it comes to exorcism cases, it is believed there are 4 demonic stages. The first stage is infestation. So this is your typical haunted house stuff. This is like hearing footsteps and bells and hearing voices, and there's like weird odors, drawers are opening, objects moved around.
Your computer screen broken after finding a rug.
Yes. So that would indicate to most people that they're amongst spirits, right? The second stage is oppression and obsession. So the activity will amp up in the house, and instead of just objects being affected, now people are being affected. So people will be scratched, they'll be marked, they'll feel really anxious, super depressed. People will start fighting. People will start to feel more isolated. There's physical attacks.
Which was the daughter that was kind of the Sandra? Or
Shannon was the one that got hit by the...
Okay. Yes.
Well, she was thrown down the stairs and also got hit by the chandelier.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
In obsession and oppression, things can also lead to sort of these familial problems, financial problems. It really just starts to like ooze out throughout the entire family. And what would have been kind of just like a normal haunting becomes something that people obsess about. So the people that are afflicted by it, like it's all consuming. It's all they can think about. They're obsessing about the activity in their house. They can't just leave, go to school, go to work, and forget about it. Stage 3, possession. Once a person is broken down enough after fighting for months or sometimes even years, the demon has weakened them to the point where the demon is able to occasionally take over the person, possessing them.
Ugh.
And then stage 4, death.
Oh, shit. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. It's the ultimate goal of the demon. Take every bit of life from someone and then move on to the next person.
And then find their next victim.
So at this point in the story, the Smurls are likely around stage 2 in the obsession and oppression stage of the demonic attack.
Okay. So there's some
They've got
room.
2 more to go.
Yeah.
They're only halfway through. No one's died yet. So the Smurls were likely entering stage 2 of the demonic attack. And after the Warrens had initially coaxed the demon out and tried to drown it in holy water and prayers, the Warrens left the Smurl home, but with an ominous warning that the Smurls needed to be hyper vigilant. They needed to do everything that they could to protect themselves against the demon. And while the Warrens weren't there, that was the expectation of them. While the Warrens weren't there, the Warrens would be actively working towards coming up with a plan to help the Smurls. So basically,
the recommendation,
survive.
So the recommendation is not to leave the house. Like they are supposed to continue living their life in this house with the knowledge that there is a demon still actively trying to possess one of them.
Yes. And we will see how leaving the house doesn't help at all.
Okay. I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. Good
So
to
the
know.
Smurls were advised to say this one particular prayer and phrase whenever they started to feel fearful. In the name of Jesus Christ, in the blood of Christ, I command you to leave and return to where you came. Lorraine Warren told them to go to a church, stock up on a bunch of religious items, get holy water, get candles, get incense, frankincense, like do all that sort of thing. Get everything that they could get.
Which I think we talked about this in part 1, but just to say it again, because I feel like this is a good time to say it. If you are experiencing dark energy around you, yes, you can turn to Catholic symbols and idols, but we are very much of the belief that utilizing something that speaks to you specifically is going
And
to
in
be the
your
most
culture.
powerful. Yes.
And your
correct.
familial line.
Yes.
You know? So yeah, whatever draws you in.
Yeah.
In this case, the Smurls were a Catholic family, and Ed and Lorraine Warren were also Catholic.
Right.
So
that's what they turned
it worked out that it all was Catholic items.
Yeah.
So while Ed and Lorraine were very powerful and had experienced many different cases like this, they also advised the Smurls to bring in a priest, because although Ed was the only non-ordained priest to be able, or non-ordained exorcist,
right.
they still wanted the help of a priest. So they were like, hey, also call as many priests as you can. Let's get this house exorcised. Let's just throw everything we can at this house. So the Smurls were advised to beware of a few hot spots in their home as well. For Janet and Jack, it was in their bedroom, there was a closet. For Mary and John, their bedroom closet. That is where the entity liked to lurk, and that is basically where it would wait and also cross between the two
Interesting
homes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Because it's a duplex, so they share the wall.
So
and
it's the same closet
mirror,
wall?
I'm sure it's like a mirror layout, floor plan. That very night, the family went to their respective rooms, and they're trying to sleep after Ed and Lorraine and the rest of the team leave. And Karen and Shannon are together in their bunk beds, and they lie there awake, frightened, talking to one another as knockings start tapping on their bedside wall. So just moments after they try to rid the house of the demon, activity starts again. A few walls over, Jack and Janet experience a different form of haunting and taunting. Janet was slapped. The sound of the smack sounded like leather hitting bare skin. They compared it to like a leather whip.
So
hitting bare skin.
This first attempt of ridding the house of this dark entity almost aggravated it more.
Yes. It like slinked away and was like, oh, I'll be quiet until everyone leaves, and then I will come out and attack the Smurls for doing this.
The Smurls also, that name is, I don't know why, but it's like the perfect name for a possession.
It
There's something about it that screams, possess me. Sorry to any Smurls out there.
So Janet gets hit. Her bare skin gets hit. And then it strikes her again. And this time it's so hard that Janet like literally yelps. She's screaming in pain. The air then swirls around her and Jack, and the two grip onto each other. They're desperate for safety. Jack's feet are now tickled. So Janet's getting slapped. Jack's being tickled.
I'd rather be tickled. I mean, it's creepy, but I think I'd rather that than the slap.
Yes. But I think this is kind of like, well, I don't know. I think I'd rather be slapped.
Really long, dark, dirty, demonic nails that are rotting.
Well, it's also one of those things where in the last episode, in part 1, there was a part where the entity was trying to rip her from the bed and was trying to hold Jack still to not be able to help her. This time, Janet's being slapped, and Jack is so incredibly ticklish. His feet are being tickled. So now he also, again, can't help her. So it's like doing anything and everything that it can. It's like showing that it has multiple hands.
Truly. Literally.
Literally multiple hands to make sure that even if they're right next to each other in the same bed, they can't help one another. And they can both be attacked.
Jeez.
Jack is struggling to maintain his grip on Janet, and he flinches and he squirms and he's being tickled, and Janet continues to be slapped, and she's yelling for Jack this time, and the walls are banging, but it's not a normal banging. It's like this deep, echoey banging. Like it sounds like it's metallic? Coming from like hell. Yes. Yeah, 100%. Like the inside of a drum or something. It feels like their room is sinking beneath the earth and into the depths of hell. That's how it felt. These deep, loud bangs, and it's just like the air is swirling around them. It feels like they're starting to fall.
It kind of reminds me of the scene in the Poltergeist, the original, where they're in the child's bedroom, and all the toys and everything's being sucked into the closet, other world. Yeah. Terrifying.
Why did I go to Halloween Town where it's like all of the lost items go to that one house?
All the socks?
Yeah.
That's the delightful version. Yeah.
So then the TV that's unplugged turns on, and Jack, in a very Zach Bagans moment, demands that the entity show itself so they could have a fair fight. So he taunts this entity once more. He threatens it. The knocking continues, and Jack is able to leave the room. He goes and he checks on his children, and they're all awake. They're terrified. They also hear the sounds of the banging. It's all throughout the house. Simon, the poor dog, paces back and forth in front of each of the kids' room, trying to protect them as best as he possibly could, despite all the times he's been attacked himself.
What a sweetie.
3 a.m. strikes, and the knocking stops. But Jack and Simon, they stay up together, patrolling the halls, protecting their girls. Janet went out and she purchased the religious items the next day, and she visited a priest, and she was like, hey, can you come over? Can you please bless our house? We're experiencing a lot of shit and we need your help. She didn't say shit. She's religious. But the priest became a bit skittish, which is so unfair. You're supposed to be brave and help people.
They're human. They're human as well.
You're supposed to fight the demon, though. He didn't want to do it. So instead of going and blessing the house, he's like, how about I just bless all these items that you're purchasing and you can bring these blessed items back to your house? So he basically blessed them, but he blessed them without holy water and then ran away. So he was just so scared. So she was
Little
rejected
shit.
by this priest. Yes. The energy in the home. The energy in the home.
Did we reach
to be too much.
Shrek is now British.
The entire family was just super on edge. Obviously, they had been for months. And they never really knew when they would experience another encounter, when something would happen, when they'd be physically attacked, when sounds would just like bust out of the walls. And their items were constantly going missing too. And when Dawn had noticed, the oldest daughter, when Dawn noticed her makeup was missing, she is also now at
Not
her
the
wit's
makeup.
end.
Not the
makeup. So she, similar to her dad, like had this freak out and she yells, I know why you took my makeup. It's because you're ugly.
Dawn, I love you. The best fuck you demon ever.
Don't fuck with teenagers.
No, they will hurt you where it...
They will hurt you.
They will really get you where it hurts.
Yes. Banging started again throughout the house as soon as Dawn made this threat. Well, is it a threat or is it just an insult? Dawn started what could be a rap battle.
Yes. Like a Mean Girls middle school fight.
But before the rapping could start, Janet stepped in. She quickly grabbed a tape recorder and she pressed record. She was like, we need to collect evidence.
Oh,
this is some of the things that they were taught by the Warrens.
I wonder if you can listen to any of this stuff.
I know. I'm so curious. It's got to be.
I bet the Warrens have
a collection somewhere. She presses record and she states, I want to communicate with you. And then she's like, holy shit, what am I doing? But still, she continues on. She goes, knock once for yes and twice for no.
Okay.
Nothing happens. She says, do you understand? She asks twice. Do you understand? No response. Not willing to give up yet, although she's shitting her pants, Janet moves on and asks, are you here to harm us?
Oh, no.
One knock.
No, that means yes.
The answer is yes. She and Dawn are standing there, wide-eyed. And Janet proceeds by asking, do you believe in Jesus Christ?
Do you believe in magic in a young girl's heart?
So she and Dawn are, that was such a hard pivot away from singing. Just, okay, and now we're back.
Back to the story.
So they ask, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And all of a sudden, all down the halls, violent bangs, boom, 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 boom. It's moving up and down the halls. Like it's freaking the fuck out and it's running and sprinting. And the vibration is so intense that Janet literally was flung. She was leaning against the wall and the wall vibrated so much. She was like shoved forward and flung against or off of the wall.
Didn't the Warrens say there were like 8 spirits or something like that?
There were 3 other spirits.
Okay.
There was an older woman who was confused. There was like a middle-aged man who was like kind of mischievous. And then there was another woman who was up to no good and kind of down to help the demon.
So the demons are gathering assistance.
There's a team. Yeah. So Dawn is cowering on the bed as her mom is being thrown from the wall. And after 4 minutes of the banging, it finally stopped. And they're begging it to stop the whole time too. Like they are freaking out.
Of course.
So Janet now had a giant target on her back. She communicated with it and she reminded it of the person that it did not like to hear about. And that was JC.
WWJC.
Should we be youth pastors?
No.
Okay.
I would be a terrible youth pastor.
I just want to be able to say JC often. And I feel like that's the only scenario where it makes sense.
You could say for, let's see, just chilling.
JC. Why am I doing this?
It's Shrek.
It's not me. It's Shrek. So not much time went by and Janet was attempting to relax in a bath. Why she dared to take a bath, I do not know. But the warm, soapy water is pooling around her neck and she's trying to relax and trying to forget about everything that happened in the house when suddenly she becomes acutely aware that she is not alone in the bathroom. There's a whistle.
Worst place. I can't do much more than that. I've got one note.
The sound of it fell heavy and ominous, almost predatory. And she screams, and Jack sprints upstairs to her aid, staying with her until she finishes the bath. So just the ominous whistle, and that was it. And feelings of negativity. When it was time to go to bed, Jack dozed off immediately, and he'd been so exhausted fighting with the demon who constantly worked to drain him of the energy that he basically passed out. But he woke up twice this night. And both times that he woke up, he was paralyzed again and unable to move in this sort of sleep paralysis state. Both times he saw two women in the room with him, one in her 20s and the other in her 50s, both in old dresses, wearing bonnets and chatting to one another. Could these two women be the two women that Lorraine and Diane had spotted?
Interesting.
The second time they appeared, the second time he woke up, one turned and looked at Jack and smirked, an ominous warning, a warning of what was to come. The Warrens sent out a team of researchers, so they wanted to help them, and although the Warrens couldn't physically be present every single time, they had many people that worked with them and for them, and so they sent out Ricky and Jason. Ricky and Jason, they arrived to the Smurl house to assess how much worse it has gotten. They set up tape recorders.
The fact that they know, they're like, yeah, it's definitely going to be worse.
Yeah,
it's not going to be better.
Yeah, it gets worse before it gets better. They set up tape recorders everywhere, and they explain what they're doing to the Smurls, and that the Warrens basically meet every investigation with skepticism. And even though they agreed to take on the case and they fully believe that, there's something happening here, they just need to capture as much evidence as possible to be able to continue and have this physical proof of paranormal activity.
Sure. And so, maybe learn more about the spirit and how to tackle it properly.
And the recorders can be helpful because then they can capture sounds of voices, EVPs, banging. It's like they can understand what's going on.
Right.
They also would record in their notebooks any findings. And this is a very thorough thing that they do. Every 5 minutes, these two men would open up a journal and they would log anything that had happened in the past 5 minutes. So if nothing happened, they would write nothing happened. But if something happened, they would say loud rappings on the doors, provoked by
XYZ.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, the point of this was to see when things happened, if there was a sort of pattern.
Patterns, yeah.
Yeah, totally. When it gets more intense. This is a scientific study of demons, and it was. So these foul odors were wafting through the house, and banging were happening on the walls. So Jason and Ricky, they are experiencing this, and they're writing it down in their notebook. And they left certain that there was a demon in the house. And they were only there one night.
Jeez. Imagine living there.
For years, they experienced this. So with the new evidence, the Warrens decided to bring in more help, more people. They arrive and they do a walkthrough of the house and everything else that's happened. And they go upstairs, they go to Dawn's room, and Lorraine hears rapping and scratching on the window. And so Lorraine looks up into the window and she sees, staring back at her, a dark mass. It was the demon exposing itself to Lorraine. That very evening, a priest came, called upon by the Warrens. So this time the Warrens brought someone in.
They know who to bring, yeah.
And this priest came to bless the house. Once the priest had left, the group decided, let's get out of the house. So the Warrens and the Smurls and the rest of the people that were there to help, they go out for dinner for one last moment of peace before they were to try to provoke the demon and draw it out again that night.
Okay.
After dinner,
the Last Supper.
After dinner, they return to the duplex, and Ed makes his way upstairs to the primary bedroom. And this is where the spirit is said to pass between the duplexes. The air is frigid. The spirit was clearly there. Ed begins a prayer, but this time he didn't get far because the spirits were ready to attack. Invisible fingers wrapped around his neck, choking him, squeezing his throat so much that his voice was like squeaky, trying to get out the prayer until he literally couldn't make a noise. He was truly being strangled. And despite investigating thousands of hauntings, Ed this time was like, this is the first time I've ever been strangled by a spirit. I'm not sure what to do. So he does, after flailing a bit and like gasping for breath, he does the only thing he can think of. And he envisions the white light of JC around him. That his body was glowing with protection.
Look, this episode, you get to say JC as many times as you want.
It's kind of similar to the ribbon wrapping technique. Actually,
it does sound like that.
Yeah, he was envisioning this light just wrapping around him and encasing him. And this was a form of religious resistance. So it begins to work. So he's picturing this as
Is he
the
alone
life
up
is being
here?
sucked out of him. Yes, he's alone. They were both, Ed and Lorraine were like walking around the house
Doing
alone.
their own thing.
Doing their own thing,
Jeez.
looking around. The hands loosen slightly, and Ed continues to envision this light. This is when a fellow researcher who's also wandering the house walks by and notices that Ed is being attacked. So he runs in and he begins to pray over Ed. Because what can you do? It's not like you can fight an invisible force.
Pull the hand off, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So he's standing there over Ed and he's also praying. And eventually they win. Ed, gasping for breath, hands are released.
Jeez.
Cross in hand, Ed continues to each room, planning to complete the religious provocation, a prayer, and a banishment in every single room, despite having just been strangled. So the very next room that he enters starts dropping in temperature dramatically. And within a minute, it is now 30 degrees colder.
30 degrees.
30 degrees colder. Ed saying Hail Marys and demanding that the demon leaves. And in the mirror, a thin thread manifests and starts to spell out a reply. It says, "You filthy bastard, get out of this house." The smell of rotten eggs filled the room, and Ed continues to pray until this demon's message and smell starts to fade away from the room. Downstairs, one of the researchers, Brady, who had been filming, he was suddenly grabbed by his shoulders and he was tossed around a bit.
This is a very physical entity.
And everyone's getting attacked. It doesn't matter if you're one of the main investigators or just someone random who came along. He's starting to feel like this tingling around his body too as he's being like thrown back and forth. He said it felt like electricity was being pulsed through his body, essentially like he was being feasted on. Like he felt the energy being removed and sucked from him.
They all had their last supper and the demons were like, our last supper is about to begin too.
Slurp up your soul.
Jeez.
Lorraine prayed for Brady and the demon seemed to release him, but it did not leave. It simply diverted its attention back to the Smurl family now. So over that next week, Jack was bitten 3 separate times. Bitten 3 separate times. Basically, they were saying it was mocking the Holy Trinity. Ugh. Mary saw a dark figure. Simon, the dog, was levitated in the air. Poor Simon. On another occasion, Janet watched Simon completely disappear in front of her eyes and then rematerialize. And when he came back, he was howling in pain. Like he was being ripped into another world and back, and it hurt him badly.
Oh no, poor baby.
The entity would continue tormenting them as the Warrens' team continued to investigate and log all of the evidence. Every 5 minutes, log what's happening. They're gearing up for a potential exorcism. June 21st, summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the most sunlight. Should be the least spooky.
Yeah, means something good.
Yep. If only the sun never set that day, because when it did, they went to bed, and Jack Smurl awoke in a panic. An older woman appeared in front of him. Her skin was pale white and dusted in patches of open, pussy sores and odd serpentine-like scales. Like she looked a little bit like a snake with...
Like I imagine this scaly pattern on the scabs. Ugh.
Her hair was white and long. Her eyes were red. Her mouth and gums a decaying green around her sharp, pointy teeth. Her body looked to be of a woman much younger, but her face was disgusting. And Jack could not scream. He could not move. He was paralyzed, stuck there in his bed, as he had been many times before.
Yikes.
But this time would be different. And this is a content warning for sexual assault. The demon approached the bed. It crawled into the bed, up Jack's body, stopping and planting itself on top of him. Jack is helpless. He's terrified. His heart is pounding. He's sweating. He thinks the world is about to end. And this demon assaults him.
Jesus.
The demon climaxes, twitching and smiling down at Jack as she does. And then she vanishes. Jack's paralysis ends.
The demon had a... Okay.
And Jack is covered with its excretions. Slimy, thick, sticky.
I'm sorry, but I can't stop thinking about the manual that I was given at church where it was like family planning. I keep doing this because this is what the picture looks like. Where it was like, based on your...
time of the month.
Yeah, like the secretions look different. Like, colors. Like it's thick and creamy. Do this to see if it's sticky. Yeah.
Good to know if you're trying to get pregnant.
Yes. Natural family plan.
Yeah. So it's absolutely disgusting. It's all over him and it smells rancid. His penis was so sore that he actually wondered if he had passed out from fear during the attack and
He
that
doesn't
if it
remember
happened
it.
a lot longer than he remembers it happening because his whole body was so achy and his penis was really uncomfortable.
That is so sad and so horrendous.
And unfortunately, it does go the other way around
Oh,
too.
no. Not to the kids. Does
Not to the kids.
Okay,
Not
thank
to the
God.
kids, but the kids were not safe either because that very next morning at breakfast, his oldest daughter, Dawn, starts to tell her dad, like, I had the worst nightmare ever. I had this nightmare that there was this old hag that was oozing sores that attacked you and started to have sex with you.
Oh, so like she almost made everyone watch it.
Mm-hmm. She implanted it in their dreams. So somehow Dawn had been shown what had happened. And so
Ugh.
now Janet is done. She's like, I am so done with this. I have been trying everything and I'm asking all of the local churches for help. That day, she bypassed the local priests because they hadn't been doing anything for her, and she went straight to the Diocese of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and she spoke to Father Calloway. So ring, ring, ring. Hello? Diocese.
Diocese
Hello,
here.
this is Janet. Oh, this is Father Calloway. Oh, thank God, Father Calloway. I have something to tell you. So
Verbatim.
that's exactly what happened. So she tells Father Calloway all of the details, and he offers to go to the chancellor to help them make the case for an exorcism. And the Smurls were thrilled. And Jack calls a friend because he knew several people that had worked in the diocese office. And he calls one of these friends to tell him the news. And he's like, oh my gosh, Father Calloway has finally agreed to help us. We're finally getting somewhere. And the friend is really confused and is like, Father Calloway? There's no Father Calloway.
Oh my God, stop it.
And they're like, perhaps Janet had heard the name wrong. And so the friend hung up and called the diocese and then called Jack back and said, no, there is no Father Calloway. I just double checked.
It's a fake call.
And Janet's like, no, it was Father Calloway who I spoke to.
And they called from the phone at home.
They called from the phone at home.
That's
so who
clever.
had she been talking to?
Smart demon.
The friend, concerned, gave them another name, Father Emmett Doyle. Also, this is reminding me of The Conjuring.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Except for in that way, it was positive where it got paranormal investigators to go investigate the house.
Yes.
But this was
Janet
demons trying to prevent
any actual help from the diocese. Well, the demon didn't need to do that because this is kind of a shit on the Scranton Diocese episode because they weren't very helpful at all. Spoiler alert.
Fuck the GBI and the Scranton Diocese.
Sorry, I'm coming in hot this episode. Paint me green and give me a microphone. Okay, so Father Emmett Doyle. Janet calls the diocese again and specifically asks to speak to Father Doyle this time. And Father Doyle, he listens to her case. He promises that he will call back the next day with some next steps.
Mm-hmm.
But he never does. The church would not help them. They had to figure all of this out on their own. And the hauntings would continue. There would be rappings on the walls, extreme temperature swings, paralysis, the sound of hooves and large wings on the ceilings, all happening almost daily.
Can I say something almost in favor of the Scranton Diocese? Not in favor, but like, what if the second call, they didn't actually get in touch with Emmett Doyle? Like, what if the demon heard the name that the friend had given and just again mimicked another voice?
It's a nice thought, but in the future of this episode, there's going to be some media pressure, and the Scranton Diocese is still going to say, meh, too bad, so sad. Janet would be the next victim of an incubus or succubus. This time an incubus, just like Jack had been attacked by the succubus.
Yeah.
And a new haunting now, the oinking of pigs. They would hear pigs all over the house. So when the Warrens heard of this update, the oinking pigs and the incubus and succubus attacks, they felt that this truly could not get any worse. This is the peak of demonic activity.
Like possession is about to happen.
Possession is about to happen. They are like, this is barely, how is this even stage 2? This is like, you're about to be thrust so hard into stage 3. The Roman Catholic Church may have not helped them, but that would not stop the Smurls and the Warrens from planning an exorcism. So there was a priest that did agree to help them. And this priest was from Monroe, Connecticut. His name was Father McKenna. Look at this picture of him. He kind of looks like he would be in a rap battle. Doesn't he? He looks badass.
Why do I know that name? Was he
scary.
Involved in another case with the Warrens?
I think they used him often.
Because that name sounds really familiar.
Yeah. Well, because he wasn't even local. They called on him.
Right.
Because the
Monroe,
local priest
Connecticut.
wouldn't help
Is that
him.
Haunting, Connecticut area?
It could be.
Interesting. Because I feel like we've talked about
It's
him
probably
on the
not
podcast
far from
before.
the Conjuring House either in Rhode Island.
Sure. Huh.
It might be Haunting in Connecticut. God, that episode was so long ago. I don't remember any of the details.
Yeah. Well, I hardly remember what we talked about last week. Had you not done a refresher?
And it was my episode. So Father McKenna, he had broken away from the church 25 years prior because he was disagreeing with some of the changes that we were making. Like he wanted mass to be said in Latin. Like he was old school and he was pretty badass. So they contacted him and he agreed to help with this case. The evening before the exorcism, 3 figures appeared in front of Jack and Janet's bed, and Jack once again laid there paralyzed. The same women with their bonnets and their old dresses, and now a middle-aged man. So the 3 spirits that Diane and Lorraine had first sensed when they came into the Smurls' house. All 3 of these spirits are huddled together and they're talking, likely discussing what to do with the Smurls. The trio then turns to Jack, laughing and pointing, and the man spoke, "You'll pay for this." Morning and the exorcism could not come soon enough. The spirits in the house would not go down easy. The Warrens were supposed to join them for the initial exorcism, but the demon tried to do anything it could to make sure that they could not arrive.
Oh, no.
And so it interfered. So Ed and Lorraine, they're driving down, ready for this exorcism, and Ed is suddenly afflicted with this crazy sharp pain, and it's so bad that he's like doubled over. They can't possibly continue, and so they make the hard decision to turn around and go home. But the exorcism would not be stopped. Screw you, demons.
It's gotta happen.
Yes, it's gotta happen.
The show goes on.
Also, sorry, demons, I didn't mean to say that.
But also screw you.
But I'm scared.
I'm not.
Fiona is more open to you.
No. Excuse you. I didn't say that. We're like, don't even conjure anything and you just send them my way.
Oh, man.
Fair. I will take them on.
So the exorcism would happen, and that very night, Janet and Jack prepare the house for the exorcism. They open every door, every cabinet. They're making sure every single corner is exposed, and then Father McKenna arrives with many religious tools accompanying him, and he plans his route through both sides of the duplex.
Okay.
He speaks in Latin the entire time. He's going to banish the demons in the name of the Lord with his rosary in hand, holy water flinging out in front of him into all of the nooks, crevices, dark corners, every single inch of this space. As he moved through the home, the house reacted. Cabinet doors open. Items around them are vibrating. The sound of a young child crying above them. Father McKenna ignores it. He continues.
Well, yeah, there's no child in the house, so I'm not going to go up there.
Relentless in the face of evil, this man. The house eventually settles, and the child becomes quiet. It appears to have worked, at least for that night, weakening
once
this
again
entity. Father McKenna would not leave them without additional help. So he filled up a bucket of water and left them with this large volume of water that he then blessed and made into holy water. And he was like, use this liberally. I'm giving you as much as you could possibly, hopefully need. And there's always more.
What if,
so
could
whenever you need
that?
it, use it.
Could you do that where like you fill every tub, every sink and plug the drain and then bless it so that they're all filled with holy water? Like all the water in the house is blessed?
Probably, I'm sure. But then I'd be nervous about putting it. Well, I guess the same as a bucket. Like, can't they just knock over the bucket? It's like, how do you protect the holy water? I'm not sure. But they're left with this big bucket of holy water, instructed to use it whenever they want as liberally as possible. And it's good that they were left with it because the activity obviously did not stop.
I imagine like the second Father McKenna left, it was just all hands on deck again.
Yeah. And that's kind of the way it always went. So the demon is now pulling out all of its stops to try to cause chaos and divide amongst all of these family members.
Yeah.
It's hiding clothing, it's throwing earrings, it's doing whatever it could to scare the kids and make the girls bicker and fight amongst one another. And it's also making them really suspicious of each other. So it's like, you know,
are you
the
doing
sisters
that? Like, why'd you take my dress?
Yeah,
why'd you take my earring?
My shirt?
Yeah.
Exactly. So all 4 spirits, or 3 spirits, I guess, and the demon, appear to the family members, taunting them now, scaring them, inflicting pain on them. Mary Smurl, the matriarch, Jack's mother, she is struggling immensely with these hauntings. Her mental health just cannot take it. She cannot bear it.
Oh,
And she becomes a bit reclusive. She becomes really
I don't
quiet.
blame her.
Yeah. She would basically go in between these bouts of almost like spacing out and not talking to anyone to just completely sobbing.
I mean, it sounds like a possession.
It does. It also sounds like postpartum depression.
Oh,
Like that
man.
kind of sounded like me.
Oh.
But she was scared to death. But the Smurls had been advised not to talk about the entity, do not give it recognition. And they were trying their best to ignore it. But with everything that was happening with Mary and with the girls and with all of them, they're like, oh, we have to communicate with one another and like try to figure out what to do to help each other. And so they would huddle in the garage and whisper to each other because I don't think anything was happening in the garage. They're like, maybe they can't hear us there. And so they were just doing desperate. I mean, that probably wasn't the case, but they were desperate and they were like, the garage seems like the safest choice.
It's interesting because I feel like we've heard a variation of recommendations when it comes to not talking about dark entities.
Mm-hmm.
Do they get more power by you not talking about it? Because don't they want to isolate you?
Yeah.
But then also saying their name and speaking about them gives them more power. It's like,
almost like what you're supposed to do is just completely ignore it and be fine. But how do you do that?
But how do you do that?
How do you
it's
not
impossible
react?
to do that. Yeah.
Right. So no space in this house was safe. And that was clear. Dawn narrowly escaped an attack from an incubus while showering one day.
Oh, God.
She broke free and she ran down the hall to her parents, thank God. Janet experienced another incubus in the tub as well. And this time, she actually physically saw it. So the first time that she was attacked, she didn't see anything. But this time she saw it. It was small. It was 3 feet tall. And it was covered in this gelatinous substance. It was like oozing goo.
Ew.
The physical violence would continue. Janet woke up to deep gouges dug into her arm. Mary had the same thing happen to her. And Jack was levitated in bed again, this time thrown across the room instead of just dropped down into his bed.
What's the time period of this? Like, how long is this going on for?
It was like something like 18 months to 3 years or something like that. I don't know exactly where we are.
This is so long.
Yeah, they were there for a while.
I mean, it also reminds me of when we did talk to Andrea Perrin. She was like, this was happening over so many years that, yes, when you put all of what happened in one book or 3 books, it seems like so much. But when you put it over 10 years of time, it's like we'd go weeks without being quiet and nothing happening.
Yeah.
But you know it's there.
You do.
It's waiting.
Their youngest daughter, Karen Smurl, became extremely ill. She dropped a ton of weight. She was running a really high fever. She ended up needing to be hospitalized. And everyone was like, oh my God, could this be an attempted possession? So,
Simon, is that you?
So basically, I think it's safe to assume that the bottle, or I guess the bucket of holy water, was probably going down and down and down and down and being used quite frequently.
Right.
It was time for them to get out of the house. So the family decides, let's leave for the weekend and go camp in the Poconos. We love camping in the Poconos. Despite being far away from their house, the Smurls still felt a bit unsettled.
I mean, if Ed is attacked miles and miles away while driving to the house, of course this thing has power and a far reach.
Exactly. And it freaking did. There was this air of evil around the entire campsite, and many strange things would happen on the campground. Their dog Simon became quite reactive, and Jack noticed in the distance during the daytime that there was a teenager just kind of looking in on their camp. And this was a blonde teen, and she was standing across from their campsite, staring at them, smiling. And Simon went berserk. And this was a very friendly dog. So the fact that he was reacting to a child, I mean, he was on edge probably from months and months of being attacked at home. But this was odd. So Simon's going berserk, and Jack is staring at this teenager. And over the next few minutes, the girl would just disappear and then reappear. Yeah. And Jack's, he's like, are my eyes playing tricks on me? He's like blinking and watching this happen. And then eventually the teenager disappears for a long enough time that he pivots his attention elsewhere. And later that night, after midnight, the entire family wakes up to hearing a voice call from across the lake. Help me! Help me! How can you not go try to help? Of course they leave their tent and they go to investigate, just a few of them, but no one was there. On the walk back to the campsite, there was a large dumpster that was picked up and was spinning violently. And this is when it became extremely clear to the Smurls that there was not just a teenager wandering by the camp. There was not someone who was calling for help.
No.
They were followed, and the demon was here.
My question is, I mean, we get so many emails from listeners about hauntings at campsites or while they're camping. I mean, think of the other campers that are there this weekend, this trip.
Oh my God, I know.
Who are like, oh my gosh, this campsite is haunted, but it's actually the Smurl family who haunted the campsite.
Yes. Yeah, because the demon is no longer attached to their house, to the duplex. It's attached to the Smurls.
Right.
So they cannot be safe anywhere. The night they got home from camping, Shannon was attacked.
Oh,
She was levitated in her bed, and assaults like this just continued. Shannon seemed like easy prey. She was the one that was thrown down the stairs as well.
She was the youngest?
No, that was Karen. But they were twins. So they were
basically
by like 3 minutes, maybe, not the youngest. So not long after the levitation, she was thrown from her bed and smacked against the wall.
Jesus.
She crumpled to the ground, cowering in pain and fear. She was sobbing. And the spirit spoke. It said, 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, you're out.
Okay, he likes baseball.
The attack woke everyone in the house. Even John and Mary on the other side of the duplex ran over because they heard it and they heard the crying and the thud. And this time, John Smurl, Jack's father, brings over a new tool with him. He had a crucifix that had a thread of JC's robe inside.
Okay.
The closest thing they had to God. So they were like, we need this.
Right.
And it was clear they were now approaching stage 4 of demonic attacks. There's infestation, oppression, possession, and death. So maybe they were skipping over possession, or maybe they were experiencing some of it. But what was clear was this demon was now trying to kill them.
I mean, I feel like they were possessed in the sense that the home was the vessel, almost. And then it did become a member of their family.
Yeah.
It almost feels like it's going between all members.
Right.
Including Simon.
Yeah. Well, and too, I just keep thinking about like Karen in the hospital and Mary in her state. Like maybe they both were experiencing the possessions.
Right.
So this relic, this crucifix, is left in Jack and Janet's side of the duplex, but it was not enough to weaken the attacks. Janet is attacked once more by an incubus. She had this really horrible headache, so she laid down on the couch and she's kind of like dozing off, and she wakes up to this sort of like suggestive touch. Someone is kind of caressing her thigh. She opens her eyes and it stops and nothing is there. And so then she closes her eyes again. She's about to drift off to sleep when she feels the hands again return, this time caressing her belly. She wakes up and then is attacked.
Jeez.
Hands around her throat. She's choked violently, so violently that her eyes started to see stars. Her vision starts to go black. She's losing consciousness. She might die.
Holy shit.
Simon, the hero dog, ran into the room and started leaping and snapping at this invisible force, leaping through the air over Janet's body, trying to snarl and bite at anything. Janet is now in complete darkness. She's basically passed out almost. She's hanging on to any life that's being choked out of her. And she remembers what Ed had said when he had been choked upstairs. So she starts picturing Jesus reaching out to her, and she accepts his embrace. And the more she pictures it, the stronger and brighter and clearer the image becomes, almost as if she wasn't picturing it at all, but instead she was conjuring JC, and he was coming to her aid and holding her.
Oh.
The hands of the demon start to loosen enough that she regains her vision, and she grabs the holy water next to her and she throws it in the air above her. The demon then releases her, slinking away back into the dark corners of the home. Father McKenna came back again, and he blessed every room, every family member. He blessed Simon. He used old traditional ancient Latin prayers for exorcising the demon, and the oldest and strongest prayers that he could find to potentially attack this ageless and old demon.
Yeah.
And the house remained silent. The demon did not stir. Did this work?
For how long?
Not long.
Okay. I was going to say, remained silent.
Yeah.
We've heard this before.
Yeah. Father McKenna left that night, thinking back to when he'd exorcised another home where pig bones were found under the foundation. And when pig bones had been found, there was a forensic pathologist that was brought into that case, and they were dated 800 years old. So there was this old ritual, almost
Under the
millennium
building.
old. Yeah. Underneath this one house that Father McKenna had worked on. And that was the
Interesting.
cause, basically, of all of this demonic activity. So he's like, could the Smurls have the same problem?
Right, because they heard the pig noises too.
They
so
heard the pigs.
that would,
Yes.
I would connect that too.
Right. And every exorcism and blessing doesn't seem to work. So the second exorcism has failed. Mattresses and Smurl family members continue to be levitated. Furniture's moved, items smashed, objects disappearing, knocking on all of the walls. The entity is lurking in the bathroom. There's phantom phone calls. There's electrical and radio interference. There's incubus and succubus attacks. 2 exorcisms, many blessings, a constant flow of holy water sprinkled throughout the duplex. Yet it was as if nothing had happened at all.
This is like the 12 Days of Christmas gift song. What's that one?
On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree.
And then this is the possession version.
Something changed, though. Maybe the Christmas spirit did come and save the day. Because while the foul odors continued to stain the house, there was now a new smell wafting through the property.
Oh.
The smell of roses. A new spirit encounter.
Just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. But it's a very holy smell.
Yeah, roses.
In the middle of the night, Janet was visited by a spirit who appeared to be an elderly woman. Her hair was tucked into a neat bun. She wore glasses and a house dress beneath a blue cardigan. The woman sat at an old table and she looked at Janet and she smiled, but not sinisterly. It was nice, more as if she had something to tell Janet. And Janet, in this moment, felt no fear. She felt very different than all of the other encounters she had with the demon, where it had taken on different forms. She felt that this spirit was different. The woman then disappeared, and a white, gold, and blue light came and flashed in this woman's place. So the next day, Janet encounters the glowing woman again, 3 times in the house. So bright this woman had shone before disappearing.
Interesting.
But the 3rd time she saw her, that uneasy feeling returned and Janet's skin crawled, and she suddenly felt like maybe this woman did mean her harm.
No.
I know, just when you think it's going to be
or
okay.
Or was it the demon now impersonating her?
Could be. So that evening, steam started to pour from Janet's mouth. Was this a trick pulled by the demon or the beginnings of a possession?
Sorry.
She breathed
a fog machine
steam
out of her mouth.
Yeah. They then called Ed and Lorraine Warren and were like, oh my God, you didn't think it could get worse? I think it's getting worse. We want to go public. We have to try to get more help. So they're thinking if they go public, maybe there could be someone out there that knows something, or it would at least put pressure on the Catholic Church to help them more.
Right.
And so Ed and Lorraine Warren are like, hey, we're about to be on this Philadelphia talk show called People Are Talking. We can bring you along. And so Jack and Janet agree. They drive to Philly. And as they're driving there, Jack nearly drives off the road because something is kicking him powerfully. Just kicking him, trying to get him to drive off the road.
So much.
So the entity was coming along to the talk show. They did make it there, and they spent the whole day and night just being drained of energy as the demon is trying to do whatever it can to interfere with them before they are set to be on air. But they made it to the television show. They made it to set, and they shared the details of their story. The audience believed them. They shared pieces of their own hauntings. People got up from the audience and said, I've experienced something similar. I also have these weird things happen. They asked questions about the hauntings. I feel like
it's safe to say very few people have ever experienced what the Smurl family have experienced, but maybe fractions of the hauntings.
Yes, at least enough to believe what they're experiencing.
Jeez.
And so they're asking questions about the Smurls' hauntings, and it felt really good to the Smurls to be believed, to have their fears acknowledged when it was so easy to have laughed at them, to be dismissive of them.
Right.
But this group didn't. Everyone believed them. And so the Smurls returned to their haunted duplexes with a little bit of hope. And Janet is then attacked once more. Her body is gently floated across the room until she woke and realized. And then quickly, she's flung against the wall like a rag doll. She's then picked up again. Her body's pulled. She's stretched out. She's suspended, pulled taut. She said it felt like she wasn't entirely in the waking world. Like it felt like she was somewhere in between, perhaps where they brought Simon. She didn't think that she was fully in her room at that point.
Is that where they put her soul when a demon takes over her body?
Oh, I just got chills.
Because it's like the stretching feeling where you're being stretched out of your body.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my God. Ew. Yes. I'm like thinking of being put in like one of those like sensory deprivation deprivation
basically.
tanks. Oh my God, I just stuttered so much over that. But yeah.
Ugh.
So she felt like this was somewhere in between. She didn't know where she was. Jack had the next encounter. A slobbering pig-like creature snarling at the edge of their bed appeared. The demon would now take on the images of other family members. So it would imitate them, impersonate them. It would borrow their voices. It would lure other family members into rooms.
This.
It would hit them. It would throw them. It would assault them. It would claw at them. It would bite them. It would burn them. It was going to kill them. But maybe first it would try to kill the dog.
No.
One night,
Simon.
Jack, I know. One night, Jack lay in bed awake when he heard Simon suddenly gasp, sucking in, desperate to get air into his lungs. Jack sits up to check on Simon when his right arm is grabbed so tightly it feels like his arm is being crushed. The bone is about to break and shatter, and a foul odor fills the room.
This thing is so strong now.
So strong. Jack grabs the holy water. He douses it all over himself. The entity then retreats from the room, and Simon regains his breath, whimpering, scared. Jack encountered the demon again later that night. It had taken on many forms, but in this moment, perhaps it showed Jack its true form. It was over 7 feet tall, a human-like head with an animal snout and horns, brown fur that covered its face.
Yeah.
Its legs looked like that of a horse. It had clawed hands, human-like eyes that reflected light just like an animal's would, and it snarled and it lunged at Jack. Jack then turned and sprinted back into his bed, and he grabbed the holy water and a prayer book. The demon then jumped on the bed. It followed Jack. It rushed him, but vanished right before it reached him.
God. I'm like, when does this end? Like,
it feels like it
uncomfortable,
doesn't,
and I'm just hearing it regurgitated. Like, I cannot imagine.
And this was a book. I didn't even write down all the details. There's more, and those are just details that even made the book.
I'm so sorry, Smurl family.
I know. So the demon was upset, and its energy and terror would soon move beyond the Smurl duplex and into some of the neighbors' homes. Scratching, screaming, temperature fluctuations, doors and cabinets opening and closing, tapping noises. It was like the demon was close to killing the Smurls and being done with them. So now it was trying to find its next victims.
It also sounds like it's at its strongest, that it's so strong, it can't even contain its energy to just the Smurl duplex.
Totally. There were 6 additional houses now under attack by the same demon. 6. One neighbor called the Smurls 6 or 7 times in a weekend trying to get a hold of Janet. And each time they called, this little girl would answer and said, "The Smurls don't live here anymore." Oh. And then would start to laugh.
My God.
The Smurls.
I don't even want my feet on the ground. I'm like,
the Smurls had been out of town too. They weren't even in town at this point.
How horrifying.
Right? The Smurls are they're like, okay, yeah, the demon does follow us, but let's try to escape again.
Yeah.
So they leave this time for a week-long camping trip. Maybe the demon would stay behind. It's too much of a time.
Would go to Hawaii or I don't know, somewhere warm and tropical. I would not go camping.
Woods. To the woods.
Terrifying.
So they thought maybe this demon would relent a little. It did not. So the Smurls went public again, this time bringing their story to the newspaper, and it immediately drummed up a lot of attention. Dozens of reporters called. Numerous people drove by the house and ogled at this haunted house. And that week, more than 1,600 cars drove by to look at this haunted house.
See, that's the hard thing. I don't know if I would want to say my address.
I know. But I guess if you're
it's
so
different
desperate,
in this day and age too.
Yeah. People were kind of crazy though. They climbed trees to try to look inside, to try to get a view of the second story.
Yeah.
And this was not what the Smurls had intended, obviously, with this article. They were simply looking, like, desperately seek more help. They weren't looking to be kind of this spectacle to look at. They weren't trying to be a show.
Yeah.
The police had to barricade the house.
Oh my God.
But this attention that the Smurls got wasn't for nothing, because it did pay off. For this is how the Smurls found Betty Ann Moore, a psychic medium. Betty Ann walked through the entire Smurl home, and in the basement, a spirit appeared to her, a woman named Abigail. In her mediumship, Betty Ann would enter a trance-like state, allowing her to channel and communicate with the spirits in the other realm. And Betty Ann did that. She shook fearfully as she relayed what she'd learned. Abigail, an elderly, confused woman. This perfectly matched Lorraine's description, which was not printed in the article.
I was going to say,
none of this
she
was.
had no idea.
Yep. So this felt like a corroborating fact.
Yeah.
Upstairs in the middle bedroom, Betty Ann sensed a man with a mustache named Patrick who died here, and he was afraid to move on. Again, matching Lorraine's profile of that male spirit. But Patrick's story was much more detailed with Betty Ann. She said that she sensed he had lived there in the 1800s and he had a lot of extreme anger issues. He used to lash out at his wife and physically abuse her. His wife sought comfort and safety in the arms of another man. And Patrick caught the two of them in his home together, and he murdered them both right there. And
Interesting.
He beat the man to death. He strangled his wife, Elizabeth, until she was lifeless beside her lover. Patrick, his life is soon ended because he's then beaten and hung by a mob, outraged by the 1800s.
Murders.
Yep.
Okay.
Patrick would not move on because he was fearful of the punishment that he would have once he fully transitioned to the other
I
side.
feel like his punishment that he got in the in-between is pretty shitty too. He's now working for a demon.
Yeah, but he gets to strangle people in his free time, which apparently he liked to do.
That's true.
Betty Ann pointed out an interesting fact and a very important detail. She said that the image that she saw of Patrick's wife looked a lot like Janet. He might be confusing Janet with his wife. A very haunted mansion.
Interesting. So do you think like all of the demonic activity started happening to the Smurls specifically because of this connection?
Well, no, because things were happening in that house before.
But not to this extent.
Not to this extent. But also, this was the first time in a long time that there was a family that had permanent residence there. Before it was like tenants that just like
came in and go. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other side of the duplex was vacant.
Yay.
So Betty Ann now sensed a third spirit similar to Lorraine. And this spirit, who was, quote, insane, dangerous, unpredictable, and she wasn't sure if it was a man or a woman, but this spirit controlled Patrick and it supported the demon. And then there was the demon.
So it sounds like there's like almost like a mid-level, lower level tier demon.
Yeah, right.
Who's controlling the spirits.
Yes.
And then
it does
working
like
for the higher demon.
Mm-hmm.
Hierarchy. Jeez.
The demon that was nearly finished with the Smurls was sensed by Betty Ann, and it was now torturing 6 other neighbors. One evening, Jack was in the bathroom when he glanced at himself in the mirror, and then he froze in fear. Staring back at him was a man.
No.
Not behind him, not beside him. He was the man.
Yeah.
Decomposing, rotting, his skin basically falling off.
Was it a decomposing version of himself?
I think so.
Okay.
So this is where it marks that there's a noticeable change in Jack and his behavior. His skin became pale. He became really shifty, really rotting. Paranoid. Yes. To his family, he appeared really depressed, but to Jack himself, the image of himself in the mirror made him really paranoid of becoming possessed. So he was just, it put him over the edge.
Jeez.
So he was waiting for this demon to just basically take him over. And once that happened, the other stages of the demonic attack would continue. And he was like, oh my gosh, the last step is about to be here. I'm going to be possessed and then die.
Yeah.
So with increased media pressure from the Smurls going public now twice, the diocese starts to offer some help, but had not yet followed through. They're like, we'll help you. And then just like never made follow-up plans. So that when reporters called, they'd be like, yeah, we offered help.
Yeah. Tells you he's going to call and he never does.
Yep. While the Catholic Church continued to be somewhat useless to the Smurls, the team they'd created along the way banded together and they mobilized. They were going to conduct a mass exorcism.
Like everyone who's ever been involved?
Yep. Bringing
Father
in
McKenna,
everyone.
Rick,
numerous priests,
Ricky,
everyone from church.
Yeah.
Ricky, Billy Joe.
Yeah. Betty Ann.
Yeah, all of them.
Names.
So then the diocese stepped in again when they caught wind of this mass exorcism. And they said, hey, we hear you're trying to use numerous priests. We won't allow that. You can't use our priests.
Rude.
Oh my God. Gag.
What?
So the Smurls are then like, screw you. And so they gather 50 friends and acquaintances from church and they have them over for this massive prayer circle. This is like
practical magic.
It is. The house is filled with these like religious people. So during the prayer, during this mass prayer, 2 separate people claimed to see the image of Mother Mary on the wall. But the paranormal activity never stopped after this.
Oh.
Then the diocese finally did do something. They were like, we'll dispatch a priest. Fine. Monsignor Joseph Brown. He'll come stay at your house and investigate the haunting for one night. And so the priest, he comes in his car. He sleeps over. The spirits and demons were completely silent. Nothing happened at all. And so the priest was like, I do declare this house not haunted. And the diocese says, see, look, waste of time. We're not helping you ever again. So the Smurls then call Father McKenna again. Mm-hmm. 3rd time's the charm. He's already blessed him twice. So Father McKenna, he comes, he moves through the entire duplex. He exorcises the house. And when he left, friends and church colleagues then came filled the house to have a constant flow of people over the next few days, constant prayer. Basically, they were like, let's do the exorcism and then let's continue to bring people in for
love, light,
days
and
and days
prayer.
and days.
Yeah.
Because before it was kind of like people would leave and then within a few minutes,
It happened again.
it would happen again.
Yeah.
So over the next few days, there's constant prayer. They would drown the demon in prayer and holy water, weaken it, and it worked. The house soon filled with the scent of roses again, and weeks went by and nothing happened. They continued to pray.
The roses scent came back?
Yes.
Interesting.
They continued to pray. The smell of roses continued to appear. It wasn't constant. It would like kind of appear and disappear. And it seemed like the fight was over. And so now they're approaching Christmas. Weeks have gone by. The Smurls, they're in good spirits. Decorations were up. Kids were inviting friends over again. Everyone's feeling cheerful, feeling a little more safe. And so again, they let their guards down. And then it happened. In the wee hours of the morning around Christmas time, Jack, unable to sleep, turned on the TV downstairs and he said a prayer. And when he finished, the demon appeared.
What?
A black mass, this demon, and it was calling for Jack. It wasn't giving up hopes on possession. Jack is essentially clutching his pearls in this moment, but literally he was clutching his rosary. The demon starts to move quickly towards Jack, and Jack fumbles, trying to move away from the demon to create some distance between the two of them. He backpedals towards the stairs, and the demon is closing in. Jack is searching, fumbling for the handrail behind him, not willing to turn his back to the demon in an attempt to bolt up the stairs, and the demon moves faster. It readies its body. It's about to lunge at Jack. Jack is fumbling. He's tripping up the stairs. He knows he cannot outrun this demon. His heart is beating out of his chest. His breath is short and quick. His shirt drenched in sweat, and so he did the only thing he could think to do, and he held out his rosary to the demon. He prayed loudly, eventually shouting the prayers at the demon, and the figure starts to retreat. But the hauntings began again, and it came in full force. They continued to pray. They continued to do everything that they'd learned from the team of investigators and priests, and eventually the hauntings did settle a little. A couple years later, the Smurls decided enough is enough. We have to move and just see if that works. So they moved to a different county, and the demon did not follow. The Smurls were free.
What? Who lives there now?
I have no idea, and Google wouldn't tell me. Maybe someone else will be better at looking it up. All that, and just eventually they moved.
Nothing helped. Nothing.
Literally nothing.
So
it just kept
you're
coming
screwed.
back.
All of you are screwed if you're possessed.
That house is the demon's house. Okay, let's just condemn it, leave it be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Hell House. Didn't they knock it down?
Maybe.
I think they did.
I didn't finish watching that documentary because I got scared.
Yeah, I watched it by myself.
Well, I attempted to, and then they're like, we're about to show the image.
Like, nope.
And it haunts people, and I was like, never mind.
I'm not going to do it. Hate this. Hate it so much.
Yeah.
For so many reasons.
Yeah. Because there's nothing, there's like the conclusion is they moved and that worked, but there's nothing that to banish the demon. Like this is a possession case of a house and a house being exorcised time and time again. Like this is an example of it not working.
And it's like, yes, this has a happy ending. And I'm really glad everyone in that family and in that house is okay, aside from trauma and shit that they have to deal with. But it truly is just this depressing story of possession that doesn't give you hope at all.
No. And so we made it a two-parter for October.
Yay. You're welcome.
So
Joy. I guess the one piece of hope is that it did eventually stop. I mean, moving did work. We don't know what's happening to that demon.
No.
Who it's got in its teeth right now. Not us.
Yeah. Do you have a spooky story from someone else?
I do.
Experienced something hopefully not nearly as bad as this?
Well, it's called The Demon in Rhode Island.
Okay.
So not in Pennsylvania. And it's from our listener,
Northeast.
Mina. Hello. Background. Before I start, I need to tell you my family and I have always been spiritually aware. And I'll start. Should I end with the lighthearted?
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
I'm a dog begging for the lighthearted story.
Okay, so I'll start with the spooky shit. So I was at my cousin Morge's parents' house listening to your podcast. And every Thursday we have family dinner with all of my cousins because they live on the same street. So let's call my older cousin, let's call her Boob.
Okay. Hey, Boob.
My older cousin notices what I'm listening to and she freaks out. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? How could you be listening to this shit? In quotes, was literally what she said. I was on the episode of Demons and the Ones That Have Sex with the Living. I told her I enjoy it. And she goes, okay, but do not listen here. So of course I'm like, what the fuck? Why? Then she tells me that there's a demon in her house. And I'm like, excuse me? The owner of the house, my cousin Morge's mom, is a bitch. And I don't mean a regular bitch. I mean bad vibes 24/7. Her presence literally used to scare me as a child and make me anxious.
Oh.
Obviously, I got older and had started to ignore the bad vibes, but I think, and my older cousin, Boob, thinks that her negative energy attracted a demon. Apparently, there's a bunch of shit that happened here. The husband woke up to his wife moaning in her sleep. Morgue woke up to 3 scratches on her arms a couple of nights, and her parents told her it was a rash. But her dad knew it was paranormal.
Yeah, especially the 3. It's a classic move.
This woman would say weird shit in her sleep, and her dad was convinced that the demon was after him and trying to kill him. He used to tell Boob's mom all of the stuff that happened, and she told Boob, who told me. They invited a psychic over, and as soon as she entered the house, she said the Archangel Michael had his wings around the house protecting it.
That's great.
Then she got to one side of the house and pointed with fear in her eye, saying something bad was over there. She told them to be careful and left. They never heard from the psychic again. Anyway.
I hate being abandoned.
Ton of haunted stuff there.
This person.
But here's the lighthearted.
Okay. Whew.
It's good that we are ending with this. Okay. This is about my dad's brother. When I was growing up, I lived in a raised ranch, and for the first 3 years of my life, my uncle lived with us. I remember everything about my uncle. His jokes, his car, his smell, his smile, and his voice. And he used to tell me how every time I sleep, angels fly around my head. So before I went to bed, I would try to trick the angels and try to see them. I used to have night terrors, which I don't remember, but my mom would tell me I would sit up, my eyes wide open, screaming bloody murder. And when my uncle passed away, I stopped having night terrors. To this day, I believe that he is the angel that flies above my head. And years later, my mom allowed me to see a medium. I saw her many times, but the last time I saw her, I was in middle school. And while we were talking, I look over and there was an imprint on the bed where she did Reiki. I asked, do you have any other clients today? And she responded, no, that's just your uncle letting you know he's here.
That's beautiful.
One time, my mom and I were fighting, screaming at each other, and all of a sudden we heard this huge thud. We thought maybe my puppy had gotten into something, so we ran into the kitchen to find my puppy, Samina, sound asleep, and the vent from my ceiling had been thrown across the room. There was no fan on, no AC, no heat, and my mom and I looked at each other and agreed, let's stop fighting. I have been around death and loss from an early age, and I've been to mediums and card readers since I was about 12 years old. My mom always referred to me as an old soul, so since I was young, she introduced me to the other side. Every medium I have seen has literally stopped what they are doing, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, he loves you and is proud of you. And he's always right there by your side.
That is so special.
Yeah. When I was about 8 years old, my best friend passed away from cancer. I used to write to her in a notebook, and another time with Cindy, the medium I'd go to a lot, she told me to stop writing to Amber when I was angry. She wants to hear about when you're happy. I did not tell a single soul that I was writing to my best friend. So how did Cindy know?
Oh my gosh, I just got chills.
Right.
Shivers all down my body.
That's also really cute that her friend wanted to know about happy times.
Well, no, I know, but just the connection to just to know that.
Yeah.
Woo! So cool.
My dad is not so supportive of the other side making contact. Granted, he's a 72-year-old Italian greenhorn, and it's not that he doesn't believe, it's just that he's anti-scary things. Because apparently my grandmother, who was consumed by the paranormal, attracted some scary stuff to their house, and my dad claims that one night after my grandmother went to a psychiatric hospital, he woke up and saw the devil hovering over him. So I kind of get why he's anti-paranormal. But another funny story for you about my dad. Every Halloween, I work in a spooky house, and I asked him why he would never come in to see me. And this is his story. He used to live on Federal Hill in Providence, Rhode Island. There was an old Italian woman who had a son and a daughter, and trigger warning, apparently the daughter was sexually assaulted by the brother. My dad always used to see this woman walk down the street with several garbage bags for a whole month. Apparently, she had killed her son and was disposing of him. So they sent her back to Italy for her crimes because she was not a U.S. citizen. And my dad and his friends decided to go see this lady's home after it had been foreclosed and abandoned. Little did he know that his friend was already in there, hiding in the closet, And he was investigating the house by a window when his friend jumped out to scare him.
Oh my God.
And my dad literally fell out of the window.
Oh no.
This is why he never visited me at the haunted house I worked at.
Jeez.
You guys rock. I hope you read this on the show. I can't wait to listen. Love, Mina.
Mina, what the heck? That is wild.
That last story is horrifying for so many different reasons.
I know.
But it also
I'm like, how
kind
did
of
we not
reminds
hear
me
about this? I feel like this should be like a giant case.
I mean,
I guess it's not to be
we
morbid,
don't know when
but
it
like
was.
I guess this stuff kind of happens
I
a
know.
lot, unfortunately.
It kind of reminds me of when Tiffany Reese was telling us about the house that her and her friends all went to in Sacramento.
Oh yeah.
Where
Yeah.
they would all scare each other. But yeah, terrifying.
That is terrifying. Holy crap. There's a lot going on there. And also I want to say, Mina, the lighthearted one was beautiful, but you also included some things that were not lighthearted in the lighthearted section.
Like the demon that was attached to...
And the throwing of the ceiling vent and all that stuff. I'm like, wait a second.
Her dad waking up to a demon like hovering above him.
Every other sentence was actually, in fact, not lighthearted. So, dang.
And I guess her cousin's house is haunted. So
Yeah.
good luck, Mina.
Best of luck, Mina. It sounds like everyone you know is haunted, including you.
But I love that Mina has a psychic medium that she goes to all the time. Cindy.
I know. Yeah. One that she actually can go to all the time, not one that abandons them like in the beginning.
Yeah. But to be fair, if I were a psychic medium who's doing house calls and I don't know someone, but I go to their house and it ends up being terrifying.
That's true. You have no obligation. Maybe you're just like, I'm trying to help you connect with your past dog and your great grandma. Like that's what I signed up for.
And who knows if something followed her home and she had nightmares. She's like, I'm never going back there again. I just cleansed myself.
You don't have to subject yourself to that.
She also told them something evil was there. Like
she did what she needed to do.
She did what she came for.
I'm sorry that I was rude to you before. There's something, honestly, this paint is making me so itchy. I can't believe you're not itchy.
My nose is dripping a little bit.
Yeah, I'm dying over here.
I hope you're not dying because death is the
We're
last
all dying.
stage of
Every
possession.
breath we take is a little bit closer to our last.
Yeah, that's true. We're actively decaying, rotting. And if you eat anything from the ocean, you're basically eating from the largest cemetery in the world.
And a lot of pee is in there.
And poo.
Woohoo!
And so many dead bodies and creatures.
So if you have a story to tell us, you can email us at twogirlsoneghostpodcast@gmail.com. We have bonus episodes and some live events and different things going on over at Patreon. There's just one tier. So if you want to join all the spooky fun, that's great. We also tell ghost stories live every Tuesday night over on Patreon as well.
And if you'd like to see our costumes and our swamp, get an inside look at our swamp home, please check us out on YouTube. And thank you so much to all of you for listening. And thank you to our editor, Jamie, for making us sound better and more put together.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for coming back every single week. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will see you on the other side.